Hey rollerblades, what's more annoying? My squeaky razor's Colts or my squeaky like $35 computer chair? Let me know down in the comments. Also, I want to try out something new moving forward, at least just this once, because I really appreciate the input and the ideas that the roller booting community here gives me for video ideas. Comment down below what kind or style or whatever video that you want to see next. Comment down below, and the comment that gets the most upvotes, the most likes, I will do my best within reason to accomplish that video. I'm not gonna rob a bank or anything with skates on, but I will do my very best to actually make that video happen. So let's try that out. So comment down below. Another thing, Ricardo Lino came out with his top 13 YouTube, kind of active YouTube channels that he kind of watches, and it's actually something that I was thinking about doing recently too. Compiling all the like inline skating, whether it's aggressive or otherwise, compiling them all together in sort of a list so that there's almost like a reference point for like newer skaters or someone that's newer to like YouTube to go and be like, oh cool, like here's the whole list. So I appreciate him making that, and I appreciate him including this channel, our channel, in the third slot. And he said it was not in like any specific order. I don't believe it. I think this channel, number 3. What do you guys think down in the comments? I'm just kidding. But one thing he did mention was that he doesn't know really who I am, what my name is.
I roller boot. Honestly, I don't know the name of him. I don't know his name. I don't know the name of the skater that runs this YouTube channel.
And that's kind of like sort of by design, because I don't think it's necessarily that important for me to get like my identity out there. It's not that I withhold it. Like my name's Ben Sanders. I grew up skating Lake City, Florida, and now I live in San Antonio, Texas, where I love skating with the local crew. But I just don't make it a point to put it out there because I think that's not the goal of this channel. The goal of this channel is to spread rollerblading, not to spread like me. So just wanted to kind of put that out there. So if you're new here, thank you for being here. Give the video a thumbs up if you do end up liking it. Make sure to hit the subscribe button to help get rollerblading out to more people. And so you're here because you want to learn how to do switch ups, which is awesome. And I feel really excited about this video because that's literally my favorite thing to do on the rollerblades is do switch ups. I think you're only limited by your creativity. You're only limited by your trick vocabulary. I think it's just a lot of fun. You can string together, and my mom said this recently, that it's almost more of like a choreographed dance. Before we get into this, right, because skating is like, in my opinion, almost more of like an art form than just about anything else, there's 100,000 different ways to skin the same cat. Right? Like, so I'm going to give you tips and tricks and I guess advice on how I approach switch ups, or what advice I give people that are thinking about learning switch ups. Understand that there may be conflicting information about there. And I think this is a good thing to understand moving forward, is that like you're going to get sometimes conflicting information, and it's up to you to use your best judgment and basically try different pieces of advice and see what works for you, right? If it doesn't work, you know, and you gave it a good shot, then fine, try something else, right? So just wanted to preface that. So what is a switch up? Well, in skating, there's different grinds. For instance, there's the acid grind and there's the royale grind. And a switch up is when during one continuous grind, you switch from one grind to the other grind, i.e. acid to front royale. And some fairly common switch ups in rollerblading are Mizu to Royale, top acid to true Mizu, back farf to Soul, Royale to alley-oop top Soul. And again, like I mentioned before, like there's effectively like an infinite number of combinations that you can do, which is why it's so fun, because it's nearly endless. You can challenge yourself to the end of the earth. But these are some of the most common switch ups that people tend to sometimes learn either earlier on or kind of are some of their staple tricks, if that makes sense. And so I think that probably the most important thing before we get into this is that I mentioned my 5 mistakes that beginners make video. Check it out, card in the corner. Is that a lot of people, because in my opinion, switch ups look cool. And so I think some beginners, again, kind of rush into trying to do switch ups without having a real grasp on the grind that you're switching from and the grind that you're switching to, right? So we talked about an acid to front royale. Well, you should be able to do an acid consistently and confidently over and over. Same thing with a royale grind before you consider combining the two, right? Because switch ups do nothing really more than add difficulty and add complexity. And if you're not already very confident with both of the grinds, or all 3 or 4 or 10 of the switch ups that you're going to do, those grinds, then in my opinion, that's step 1. Get good and confident at the grinds themselves. So I think one thing that's really important is, like I mentioned in the beginner video, is that, buy or build yourself a nice practice rail or a practice box, PVC pipe and some 2x4s, or just buy a pre-made one. Plenty of them out there. And with these switch ups, and like we said before, is these grinds, right? For instance, we'll call it the front royale. Well, you should be able to kind of adjust your weight. Switch ups are all about kind of weight adjustment, shifting your weight from one foot to another, because you're switching, you're making different movements, and you should be able to really adjust the distribution of your weight between both feet, because that's going to allow you, in most switch ups, you have to take the pressure off of one foot, at least one foot, in order to allow that switch up to occur, if that makes sense. So it's really important while you're doing these grinds by themselves to play around with shifting your weight from one foot to the other without actually moving your feet, but just feel that weight shift, right? If you're doing a sole grind, think about putting more weight on that front foot, that H block foot, fast slide foot, whatever you want to call it, and taking a little bit of weight off that back sole foot, and just going back and forth and playing with that, because this is going to be really important in doing switch ups down the road, is shifting your weight to allow that switch up to occur. Okay, so once you have your grinds down, like we talked about, you have your grinds, you're confident at your royale grind, you're confident at your sole grinds, and you pick a switch up to do that you can do both grinds at. What I do, my approach, is to just start stalling. So very slowly roll up to the obstacle, in this case a P-rail, with no intention of actually sliding, but just stalling the first grind and then practicing the switch up to the next grind, and slowly doing that over and over. And what this is going to do is going to help ingrain that muscle memory in how it feels to do that switch up and what the sight picture looks like down at your feet. And what's really important is that these stalls should, if you do enough of them, you should see where the failure points are going to be. So when, not if, but when your foot slips in the wrong direction or doesn't lock on, you see what happens in a low risk environment so that you can adjust and catch yourself. And as you're practicing these stalls, whether it's on the practice rail or the practice box, don't just stall it, right? Yeah, get those reps in, but actually start to visualize and start to think, okay, when I am sliding, this is what it's going to feel like, and what it should feel like, what it should look like. And as always, and this is like the running theme in rollerblading, is as you're doing these stalls, which you should already be doing with your grinds, but really, really focus on getting a nice aggressive stance, nice bent knees, nice low hips. Okay, so now that you've gotten your stalls out of the way, maybe you've done, I'm not going to put a number on it. You do the stalls long enough and as many times as it takes for you to feel comfortable and confident for you to actually start rolling up to it with the intention of actually sliding the switch up. So once you are ready, roll very, very slowly up to the rail or the box or whatever it is. And you're not trying to be a hero here. Just try to slide the grind, slide the switch up. It doesn't matter how far you slide on this, you're learning. So just focus on just easing into the slide and easing into the switch up. And so get those reps in over and over and over until, again, you see what the failure points are. You get that sight picture, you get the feel. Maybe the rail or obstacle isn't sliding very well, or maybe it's sliding really fast, right? And so this is all, again, just to crawl, walk, run into doing some really awesome switch ups and doing them really smooth, making them look good. And so as you do this more and more, and you practice with your stalls and you practice with the really slow attempts, you're going to be looking down at your feet. Because you've never done this before, presumably, right? So you're going to be looking down to see what your feet are doing down there eventually with time. And again, this is something that's going to come with time, but it's something to be mindful of now, is that yes, you're going to be looking down at your feet to make sure that they lock in and make sure that they're positioned where they should be, and that's fine. Over time, you should be doing that less and less, right? You should be building that muscle memory to where your feet kind of go where they belong and your eyes are looking where you want to go, right? Towards the end of the rail, towards the end of the box. Okay, so now that you've done, right, you've stalled it, and now you've done some really slow slides, some really slow attempts. Maybe you've, had a couple small spills, maybe a couple switch up misses, which you should at this point. Feel free to start adding a little bit more speed. Again, the important thing here is just to build that muscle memory and not to not to just stomp the trick right now, right? So just ease into it, add a little more speed as you can. And understand, once you start really getting the hang of it, is that in general, right, you'll see a lot of people who do switch ups and they'll do the switch up right at the last 6 inches of the rail. Again, don't get out ahead of yourself, but in general, at least in my opinion, it demonstrates a little bit more control and confidence if you can do that switch up sooner than later, if that makes sense, right? It's one thing to like just royale the entire rail and then quickly switch up to alley-oop topsoul at the very last second. It's another thing to jump on royale, get set very quickly, and then switch to alley-oop topsoul and slide that out. In my opinion, it looks much better. But that's something that you shouldn't necessarily be focused on now. Now you're just focused on getting reps in and incrementally increasing speed and distance. Okay, so here's one thing that you really, really don't want to do, and I am guilty of often, is that if you jump on that first grind and you don't have your balance, it doesn't feel right, it just doesn't feel solid, do not force the switch up, right? If you don't feel solid and have that nice sight picture, have that good body position, just let it go. I guess I find with myself is that sometimes I start getting in my own head where I go over and over. And so if you start missing the switch and you start getting frustrated, don't be afraid to just go back to stalling it, right? Take a deep breath, just go back, try stalling it, and just kind of reset yourself. Maybe take a seat, take a breath, whatever it is, and come back and reattack it, right? So again, you really don't want to try to force it, because that's where you're gonna end up getting pretty hurt sometimes anyway. Another big mistake that I also am guilty of is thinking so much about the switch up and the second grind that you kind of even forget you don't pay enough attention and you don't give enough focus to the first grind, right? And so don't let what's coming down the road distract you from what you're doing right now. Another great key to getting better at switch ups is to practice getting a really strong backslide, like a good strong backslide and a good strong torque. So my left foot is my strong backslide and torque foot. And so if you have these grinds on down pat on lock, it kind of opens you up to a lot of different creative switch ups, because you can put just about all your weight on that backslide foot or that torque foot, and it frees up your other leg, your other skate, to then move around and do different switch ups with relative ease. Another thing too to focus on if you're sort of a little bit newer is not neglecting your other foot, right? So if you're doing, if you only ever use your left foot for soles and mizus and et cetera, you're really limiting kind of the spectrum of tricks that you can do. In addition to your switch tricks, consider, if you haven't already, check out negatives, right? Any of these tricks you can string together in a switch up and make really, really cool and really, really fun. So again, negative tricks. And if you don't know what negative tricks are, it's that kind of plate on the inside of your foot, that kind of sole plate opposite to your positive sole plate. It's on the inside of your foot. So that's negative. Check out the video right here to check out what negatives are and come up with some of my tips on how to do negatives, because those can really, again, open you up to a lot of different possibilities for really fun, creative switch ups. All right, so we're just gonna recap really quick what we went over. 1, make sure that you can do both grinds confidently and consistently before attempting to switch between them. Make sure to practice stall the switch on the rail or box over and over until you become nice and comfortable and confident at that switch up stall. Slowly roll up to the first grind and just take your time and focus on just getting that foot movement down and not necessarily sliding the whole obstacle. Add a little bit of speed as you become more comfortable and slide a little bit further, and consider switching up a little bit sooner. Make sure not to switch up before you have your balance and before you feel nice and solid. Learn more grinds, broaden your trick vocabulary, and then repeat. And that's pretty much all there is to it. So I hope you liked this video. If you did, make sure to give it a thumbs up. Consider subscribing to the channel to get roller booting out to more people here on YouTube. And thanks for being here, roller booters. We'll see you next time. Bye. Which one of these videos looks more interesting to you? This one or this one? Click one to support the channel and to support rollerblading, and I'll see you there.